My name is Faris Wald, and this is my science fair titled The Effect of 27-Day Solar Rotations on Worldwide Accumulated Cyclone Energy. This science fair represents a continuation of multiple science fairs starting in 8th grade. Over time, I've updated the science fair into what it is today. Seen on this slide are some of my most notable accomplishments with this topic. The goal of this science fair is to understand how tropical cyclones on Earth are being affected by solar coronal holes during a very quiet period in solar activity. My hypothesis is that there will be some sort of relationship between Julius Bartels' 27-day solar cycle and worldwide accumulated cyclone energy. This is my abstract, and it briefly introduces what you'll see in later slides. Please feel free to familiarize yourself with the slide. Preparing this data was very simple, and all four main sources were utilized. The first one being from Colorado State University. Colorado State University provided accumulated cyclone energy. The next one is from Potsdam, Germany, and they provide the Kp and AP data needed for the science fair. The third source, the internet source, is from the European Space Agency, and they provided the electron flux data. And finally, you have California Institute of Technology, which provide the Bartels rotation numbers and dates for the years 2004 to 2023. Referring to the work of Julius Bartels. Julius Bartels is a geophysicist and is credited with establishing the Planetary Kp Index and creating musical scales to display this Planetary Kp Index over time. Additionally, he published a theory of a 27-day solar rotation cycles, which states that every 27 days there's a recurrence and repeating of patterns in magnetic activity. Combined with seasonal effects, his 27-day solar cycle can be used to predict both the amplitude and timing of geomagnetic disturbances. Additionally, based on the results of the science fair, his 27-day forecasting tool can even be used to predict an increase in accumulated cyclone energy during solar quiescent periods. This science fair looks at data from June 27th to December 11th, 2019. In all, it encompasses 7 Julius Bartels rotation dates seen up above and 6 complete Julius Bartels rotation cycles. It is important to note that during this time frame, there is very little to no C, M, and S class solar flaring, and this is because we're currently in a grand solar minimum, so we're in a very quiescent time in solar activity. This is Figure 1, and Figure 1 shows 2019 worldwide accumulated cyclone energy from June 27th, 2019 to December 11th, 2019. This graph is the cornerstone of my science fair, as it shows that there is a sudden commencement of accumulated cyclone energy following the Bartels rotation dates, suggesting that one can predict the beginning of a positive ramp in worldwide accumulated cyclone energy just by looking at future Julius Bartels rotation dates. Figure 1 presents evidence that supports the idea of a strong solar coupling to Earth's troposphere. Similar to Figure 1, but instead of looking at accumulated cyclone energy, I decided to look at geomagnetic indices from the same time period, June 27th to December 11th. In the red squares is again the Julius Bartels rotation dates. What I found interesting is after Julius Bartels rotation dates, there is an increase in geomagnetic indices. But what's interesting is the fact that this occurs 4 days later after the Bartels date. This is quite different from the accumulated cyclone energy, in which it increased immediately after the Bartels rotation date, suggesting that there is a 4-day discrepancy between geomagnetic indices and accumulated cyclone energy. I looked all over the internet to find some sort of explanation behind this, but the best I could come up with is the idea that the high-speed solar wind may be causing the 4-day discrepancy, as the high-speed coronal hole stream pushes the slow solar wind in front of it, and the accumulated cyclone energy reacts in a positive manner because of it. This is figure 3, and what figure 3 shows is cumulative A's plot against cumulative KP Index. The beauty of this graph is the fact that it can be used for future years as a reference. If this regression line were to persist for future years, it highly suggests that there is some sort of relationship between geomagnetic activity and accumulated cyclone energy. Figure 4 is very similar to Figure 3, but instead of using Cumulative KP Index, I use Cumulative AP Index. Again, there is an exponential relationship, and if this relationship were to persist into the future, it highly suggests that there is a relationship between solar activity and terrestrial weather. Figure 5, and what Figure 5 shows is cumulative electron flux plotted from June 27th to December 11th, 2019. What this graph shows is the fact that Julius Bartels was correct in the fact that every 27 days you see a repeat of geomagnetic activity on the sun. Additionally, when looking at this graph, you can see that there is that 4-day delay is still present between when there is a Julius Bartels rotation date and when there is the increase in geomagnetic activity. Additionally, you can see seasonal variations within the data, and this can be noted with the steps as the steps increase from June to September and decrease from September to December. For the next two figures, Figure 6 and Figure 7, I decided to plot worldwide Category 4 and 5 cyclones to see whether or not I can find some sort of pattern or relationship between geomagnetic and solar activity to actual terrestrial weather. Seen right here are the storms I decided to use to plot on the following graphs. This is Figure 6, and Figure 6 is very similar to Figure 5, again showing cumulative electron flux versus time. The only difference is instead of plotting the Bartels rotation dates, I decided to plot the major Category 4 and 5 cyclones seen in the previous slide. What I noticed from this graph is the fact that the majority of these cyclones form and intensify during the transition from very little increase in electron flux to rapid increase in electron flux. This shows the GOES original electron data between June 27th and December 11th, 2019. This is what the data looks like without being summed. What this shows is again the recurrence and repeatability of geomagnetic activities, with the Bartels dates being in the troughs prior to the sudden electron flux commencement. I decided to use the red data, which measures energies corresponding to 800K EV, instead of the green data, which correlates to satellite damaging 2 MeV electrons. Finally, we have Figure 7. Figure 7 represents the interrelationship between Bartels dates, Earth incident electron flux, and accumulated cyclone energy. Again, you can see the 4-day delay in the arrival of electron flux following each Bartels date, which is indicated as a red square. What's interesting about this graph is when you look at the Category 4 and 5 hurricanes. Roughly 7 out of the 13 storms shown in the figure occur during the cooling period in which electron flux is low, supporting the idea that storms support the cooling of the ionosphere. However, there are some exceptions. These exceptions mainly occur when there is a large jump in cumulative electron flux, that is, the large spaces between the horizontal points, suggesting that rapid intensification of existing storms or the formation of storms will occur when there is a large jump in cumulative electron flux. This again supports the idea that they cool the ionosphere. Recommendations. The main recommendation in the science fair is more research needs to be done regarding the tops of these hurricanes, the ionosphere, and the relationship between the two. This research would be very applicable into the removal of both man-made and solar sources of electrons. However, this research must be conducted within the period of the grand solar minimum, as Bartels cycles are disrupted by solar flares. According to multiple geophysicists, when there is a major solar flare or there are a series of solar flares that occur in concert with one another, shockwaves are formed, destroying the Bartels recurrent cycles and any notable seasonal changes. slides will be just references. In all, there are 79 in all, and they helped paint a picture of how solar activity and geomagnetic activity are influencing terrestrial weather. Feel free to look through the slides and look at some of the references and see what led me to create these conclusions. Thank you for listening to my presentation.